All right, so before we jump into some legislative updates and a recap of our conference and everything like that, want to welcome and then let FASD United President Tom Donaldson offer any organizational updates.
Chris, thank you. Good to see you. Thank you for hosting today, and good to see everyone. Welcome. Let me just say a word about the conference. Of course, some of you I had a chance to see there. That was terrific. It's been a long time since the larger community has been able to get together, and I think Chris had a few words about this as part of the presentation. But I think we had 10 or more countries represented and 100 or more individuals living with FASD there. So it was really, really terrific in so many ways. And we were thrilled to be part of it, and hard at work on next year's edition, which is coming up. It's going to be a month earlier in March, also in Seattle. So we're already working on that. Also, in just sort of organizational update, highlighting things, we now turn our attention in many ways to Impact Week in September in Washington, D.C. I think we've shared the dates for Impact Week, and fairly quickly we'll have more details on the program for the week. Of course, there'll be a Hill Day. There will be the Red Shoes Gala. So we're hard at work there. And there's also a day where a workshop really, regarding the FASD project in the military health system. Just quickly, because I know we don't say much about that, but this is progressing very nicely. One of the main components of that project is the development of a clinical management model for FASD that is underway, that would be piloted in Washington State. Not sure when, later this year, early next year, but that's a major component of the project. So we'll see if there's a opportunity maybe to do an overall update later this spring, summer, about that project. It is very interesting, and it's very promising, because what we do there, the intention, of course, is to do it in such a way that it's relevant to civilian systems of care and can be replicated there. So those are the things that are going on here, in addition, of course, to the continued expansion of the Family Navigator. Maybe that's our most important project, since that's where we interact directly with those in need. And so we're always thinking about how to expand the services that we provide there. So thanks, Chris. I'm looking forward to the policy update.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tom. And you teed me up for quite a few things here. We can do a very quick.
Can I give a quick thought before you move, Chris?
Of course. Yeah, go ahead,
Tom, in regards to the military, I don't know if it's a military thing or a Family Navigator thing, but it would be nice if we had some kind of a point of contact on the individual bases for the affiliates to be able to reach out to offer help if they need it. But I don't know if that's a navigator issue or if the military itself could address it. I did ask last year at the military event, and the colonel didn't know. So, but that would be a good point of contact for us to be able to start working within the military communities, if that's possible.
Well, I think many of you knew Katie Erdman, our colleague over the past year, who moved on to great opportunity earlier this spring. And now that we are through the conference, the team will be hiring a person to helm that project. And so that person will ultimately be the contact for updates on the military project. And by bringing that up, Carl, thank you, because we included as a placeholder in that project funding for affiliates and funding opportunities for entities within the FASD field that might be able to interact with military populations in their service areas, your service areas. So that's not fully defined, but as we have the new person on, and that is determined, there very well could be some opportunities. And so, yes, we'll definitely have a contact person for the affiliates and for the field on that project.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom, and thank you for bringing that up, Carl. Yeah, hopefully we'll have more on that in the coming months, I assume. But moving on to a quick recap of the conference. I can't see any of your faces here, but I can only assume that there's a good few of you that were in attendance. This is the first conference since 2018, and if you were there, I think you could feel the buzz around the venue. It really made it feel like everyone was happy, excited, and relieved to be back. At least that's the sense I got from a lot of the ALC, relief that they had the space back again. As Tom mentioned, there are over 550 people in attendance, with over 100 of them being self-advocates. This conference is on a 2-year cycle, with this year's cycle having a track specific for individuals with FASD. This track was led by the ALC Changemakers, and so far rave reviews. And I really can't overstate how grateful we are as an organization to get to work with the ALC. They're just such a dedicated and engrossing group of self-advocates. Here in this picture in the top right, we have recipients of the Starfish Award, as well as 2 other individuals who are recognized for being so influential in bringing the conference back. From left to right, we have Maggie May of the ALC. She flew in from Ireland, received one of the awards. Jan Lucky, who was recognized for being influential in bringing it back. Then we have Dr. Christy Petrenko and Rebecca Toulouse, again, recipients of a Starfish Award. We have Joan Weinberg, again, who was really huge in making sure that the conference was planned and everything went smoothly. And Brendan Knight, the final recipient of the Starfish Award. Just on a personal note, I felt extremely lucky to be part of this conference in any way. And it really reminded me of the Red Shoes Gala from 2 years ago, which was just my second day working for FASD United. And I felt like I just got thrown into this passionate, tight-knit community that was coming together for just such a good cause. And it was and continues to be incredibly motivating. And I know I speak for everyone here at FASD United when I thank everyone who came and everyone who's on this call for everything you do for the community. Again, it's just, as somebody who's new-ish to the FASD community, it's just incredibly motivating. We hope to have the plenary sessions and presentation slides made available for everyone in the next couple of weeks. But for now, you can check out our recap blog post through this QR code or on our website, fasdunited.org. And on YouTube, you can see ALC member Jessica Birch's keynote from the closing ceremonies. If you watch one recording or hear one person speak from the conference, I would make it Jessica. She had the entire ballroom in the palm of her hand. She got a standing ovation from what must have been 200 or 300 people. She was a very hard act to follow, and you should seek that out. As Tom mentioned, we have Impact Week planned for later this year, September 15th through 18th. So if you couldn't make it to the conference yet in Seattle and you can't wait until next March, then you should definitely consider joining us in DC for this year's Impact Week. As you can see here, again, planned for 15th through 18th at the same venue as last year. And we have a brief outline of events here. Starts off strong on Monday with a few workshops to be announced. We'll have more information on that, most likely from Emma Baldwin, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so. Later that night, we have the Red Shoes Gala, which is just a really great venue for bringing new people into the FASD space, and is an event that allows us to continue this policy work. That's an event that I know I have a great time at every year, even though I'm working. It's at the National Press Club again this year, which has a very DC feel to it, I think, and that'll be really motivating and inspiring moving into Tuesday, where we have Hill Day planned. So rather than being at the end of the week like it was last year, it's closer to the beginning of the week. One of the pieces of feedback we got on Hill Day last year was that people wanted some information earlier, maybe some prep earlier, not getting all of your physical materials the morning of. And we absolutely plan on getting everything out to you earlier this year, definitely. So if you arrive Sunday or Monday. We'll get all your physical materials to you then. We plan to hold a virtual meeting kind of like this, if you plan on attending, just so you can know what to expect. As was pointed out by, I believe, Carl a couple months back, if you want to get a meeting with the legislator in September, you got to have that request in sometime around June. So we've already got the ball rolling on that. If you have any inkling of coming and want to be part of Hill Day, definitely reach out. You can give me a call anytime at the office, send me an email, or even in the chat right now. I'll be able to see it after this meeting. Just let me know, and we can start the ball rolling on getting some of those meetings, so we can have as many meetings with legislators as possible this year. As Tom mentioned, we will also have a few more events going on, both Tuesday night after Hill Day and Wednesday with the DoD workshop. I just say stay tuned for more information on that, hopefully next month. Okay, and moving into some policy updates. Again, I can't see who's on the call right now, but if there is anyone new, which I hope there is, we can give you some brief information on the FASD Respect Act. As I'm sure most of you are aware, we're calling it the FASD Respect Act 2.0, just because this is our second go at this process. So this version of the bill was introduced in June of last year by Senators Murkowski and Klobuchar and Representatives Bacon McCollum as S-1800 in the Senate and HR 3946 in the House. And it will reauthorize programs for education, awareness, and services across different agencies. It will allow for the building of state and tribal systems that work with FASD, and will reestablish centers for excellence. As anyone who has attended a lot of these meetings will know, we've kind of been here on step 5 for a little while now. Or rather, step 6. We were in step 5. But that doesn't really mean it's a log jam or anything like that. There's still plenty of work being done, both internally by us and by all of you advocates, as we'll see by the meeting slide that's coming up. But just as a quick overview of where the bill is right now, the FASD Respect Act has been included in the Support Reauthorization Act, which made its way through the Senate Help Committee. The Help Committee, again, is just the Health, Labor, Education, and Pensions Committee, which marks the furthest an FASD bill has progressed federally in 20 some odd years. We've been counseled by our contacts within the sponsor's office that the Support Act will most likely be considered and passed during the lame duck session. The lame duck session just being the time period between the upcoming election and the beginning of the next term. The reason it will most likely be considered then is because a lot of the political grandstanding and all of that will hopefully have subsided by then, and Congress will get down to work, as has been noted in past meetings, specifically by Susan Carlson. It's been historically slow Congress. So it's not just our bill. We really don't want people to become discouraged that there's not much movement here. It's just kind of the way it is right now. As I mentioned, this bill has been included in the Senate's Support Act. However, it was not included in the House version of the Support Act, which had already passed prior to our inclusion on the Senate side. This just means that once the Support Act passes through the full Senate, House and Senate leadership will get together in what's called conference and resolve any differences between the two of them. This is why garnering more support, specifically in the House, is so important. Once it goes to conference, we would really like to be able to show that the FASD Respect Act specifically has popular support, so it stays in that final version of the Support Act. As you can see down here on the bottom, each Congress lasts for 2 years, which means that the 118th will end in December of 2024. Again, which just kind of gives us a little impetus to make sure that we keep moving forward, so we can get this bill passed by the end of this year, and we don't have to start from scratch again, so we can start working on other bills and sort out the appropriations for this one. So in last March, we had a nice full slide here of meetings and new co-sponsors, but with how fast April flew by, I can only speak for myself. I'm not surprised with how this looks, and I'm really grateful for the advocates who coordinated all these meetings and brought in this new co-sponsor down here. So we had Representative Pete Stauber. We had a meeting with him, I believe, last week. Joel, I'm not sure if you're on the call, but thank you so much for coordinating the Minnesota meetings, and of course the Texas group, which has just been kind of out of this world this year for coordinating the meeting with Representative Cloud. The Massachusetts group, Kristen Rubin, extremely well done again this month, bringing in Representative Moulton. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I'm not sure we had any Massachusetts representatives on the bill last year, and you guys are really working your way towards coloring in the full state. Excellent. Thank you, Kristen.
Last year we had none, and this year we have 3 so far out of 9.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I've sat in on some of those meetings. They've been great. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more out of Massachusetts. One response that we've gotten from some staffers regarding co-sponsorship, Liz McHugh, if you're on this call, I think you'll attest to this, is that some legislators will say that they are unable to co-sponsor because of one policy or another. Maybe they have a new leadership position that doesn't allow them to do it, or they only will co-sponsor health-related bills that they have a close tie to. And we just really want to make sure that everyone understands that this is totally fine, doesn't negate any of the hard work you're doing or any of the reasons for still reaching out and having these meetings. This legislator can still support the bill if it goes to the floor as a standalone bill. They can support the bill if they're in the leadership group that considers the Support Act. Once that goes to conference, and at a bare minimum, you're creating a more FASD aware Congress while fostering a relationship with legislators and staffers, which will pay dividends down the road. Again, I know Jen and Susan have said it. This isn't the last bill they hope to work on in the FASD space. And those staffers, they tend to stay in Congress, not with the same group. So having those relationships is very, very important. As you can see down here, Representative Moulton's co-sponsorship has brought the House co-sponsorship above 50. Just for reference, at this point, during the 117th Congress, the bill had 41 co-sponsors in the House and 8 in the Senate. So I think we're doing great. Just want to reiterate how dedicated you all have been and how impressed with the persistence our policy team is, really. For the map, there is nothing on the Senate co-sponsor and meeting map to update you guys all on today. However, please, if you notice anything missing or you have any corrections or updates, please send me a message. You can always call or send me an email. I'll be happy to make any corrections. Same goes for the House co-sponsors and meetings. Definitely send any corrections or updates in. Just want to reiterate that we absolutely are not here to tell you what to do, what to say, how to conduct your meetings. We don't need to be part of any meetings that you don't want us to be part of, but we would love to help. And we would really like to be able to keep track of the meetings held and all the different relationships with staffers. Just looking at the chat very quickly. Thank you to everyone who's active in the chat. Liz, I'm not sure if your question was answered. The window of the lame duck period. So that's just from the time that between the election and the next term. So it's very short, election November through the end of the year, basically. This next map, which is not a map that we have really shown before, shows the coverage if we were to win back all of the co-sponsors from the 117th Congress who have not yet signed back on during the 118th. Just going to switch back and forth between the two of them. It's not super drastic, but you can see it would change some gray to blue, some grays to yellow rather, and some yellows to blue. But more importantly, it would show House leadership that the FASD Respect Act has popular bipartisan support. Just to make it as easy as possible for everyone on the call, we have this list right here that is showing all of the co-sponsors from the 117th Congress who have not yet signed back on during the 118th. So this is a slide that usually says what next, what to do. And I know Jen has said it probably 1,000 times, contact your 2 senators and your 1 representative. I think you guys all have that down by now. I think it'd be really, really great if we can bring all of these representatives back to the table. As you can see, California has a huge list here, which is totally unsurprising. They have the most representatives by a decent margin at 52. And that California group, all the California advocates, did such a tremendous job during the 117th. And we really want to make this easy on everyone here. So on Friday, once the blog and the recording of this go out, we will also be publishing an email template, a fully fleshed out letter that you can send to your representatives if they're on this list, just asking them for their support again. This is going to be an email that is specific to these representatives. So it'll be really thanking them for their support during the 117th. It can outline just a few of the changes that have been made, none of which should really keep them from supporting. And again, we understand the amount of work you all do and the time it takes. So we want to make it as easy as possible. So feel free to use that template if you want. Feel free to edit. Feel free to ignore. But if you do want any help or support, if you need the contact information for their staffers or anything like that, again, give me a call or an email. Email is just melfi@fasdunited.org. And we can get that going for you. We had talked about our state proclamation project, I believe 2 months ago now. Oh, Liz, thank you very much for that. I will definitely make sure that the change is made from Washington to Virginia, even though I know you've already had that second meeting with Representative Byer, so hopefully we can get him back in. But the state proclamation project, we talked about 2 months ago, and we've really just set the goal of having all 50 states have a state proclamation for FASD Awareness Month in this September. Just for anyone who's not aware, these proclamations are ceremonial and not legally binding, but they are great at raising awareness. It's a great first step at fostering a relationship with your state officials and with key players within the state. And it really shows popular will and the need for FASD to be part of more conversations. Many of you on this call have submitted proclamations in the past and won't need any support or anything like that. We'd love just to be kept in the loop. Just so starting next month, we can start coloring in a map and color the whole map red. And just to help people out and again, make it as easy as possible, we've developed documents that are specific to each state. These documents include a website link, either with more information or where you'll actually submit your request, deadlines for submission, both the earliest and latest date of submission, the process and requirements for submitting, as well as citations for statistics that you might need, and draft language that you can use, you can edit, you can you can use as a jumping off point for yourself. Each month at these meetings leading up to September, again, we'll start showing the map next month of everything colored in. I know we've already received at least 2. And Liz, I know that you're working on Virginia, so that's fantastic. Thank you. Here you can see that coming up very quickly will be the North Carolina submission date of May 4th and California of June 3rd. Some of the states are more lenient than others. Some seem extremely strict, and others barely have any information online, but really they're super helpful with a call. So again, if anyone wants any of this information, if they want their own state sheet with all this information, you can give me an email, put your information in the chat, and we'll get that over to you. Okay, as mentioned, moving forward, we're going to try to do just a few minutes of each policy forum dedicated to state appropriations and state advocacy. And we're going to start off real bare bones, really easy, with what an overall budget process looks like for most states. This is key just because once the FASD Respect Act is passed, each state will need to have the proper scaffolding, proper advocacy work already done, groundwork laid, so everything can kind of flow smoothly. So once these programs are authorized, the fight for funding will begin, which is an ongoing process and will be an ongoing process pretty much every year. But there are many things that can make this process easier, including having relationships with state and local and federal officials, which again, a great starting point for that would be the state proclamations, just getting the word out there, having a point of contact at the state level will definitely help. So each state budget process is a little different, but they all will include or will begin with what is called a revenue forecast, in which these states will estimate projection of state revenue for upcoming fiscal year. For almost every state, that fiscal year is July 1 through July 30th. Even the way that these revenue forecasts are created is different for each state. And how the governor submits their proposed budget is different as well. So in 44 different states, the governor is required to just propose a balanced budget. So same amount of money in is the same amount of money out, no deficit. 41 states require the legislator to actually pass a balanced budget. And in 40 states, the governor must pass a balanced budget. So 40 states, the final budget must be completely balanced. This is unlike the federal government, which can carry a deficit over. And again, like I mentioned, how this revenue forecast is done varies by state. So most states, I believe there's 28, use a consensus process where the executive and the legislative branch work together to create this revenue forecast. 12 states have the legislative branch and the executive branch, so the legislator and the governor develop separate competing forecasts, while 10 just rely on the executive branch. This information is then shared with the different governmental agencies. So they share with them the forecast, proposed spending targets, and what the governor's policy priorities are. After that, the governor will submit their budget to the legislator, and the legislator will then consider the proposed budget, which will include public hearings, committee hearings. They'll consider amendments. This is when the bulk of the advocacy work can really be done right here. Both chambers will pass their own version of this budget bill, and then we'll meet in conference to resolve any differences. There are a few states that have state legislatures create their own budgets at the same time that are considered side by side with the governor's. After the legislator votes on the budget, it then gets sent back to the governor, who can either accept it, veto it, or offer line item vetoes. And then once that's done, the process starts all over again. Sorry about that. So all of this is shared just to show you what the process is like. We have some very cursory dates down here that show when each part of this process happens. It's really important to know that advocacy at the state level can occur and really should occur at each of these different points, right? If you want to be considered one of the funding priorities by the governor, they need to be aware of FASD. They need to know that there's popular support and that there are programs that can be funded. So having any sort of relationship with the executive branch, whether that's by showing up to different events, which I know is not feasible or not really an option for a lot of people, which is totally fine. That's why I think starting with the state proclamations is a great idea. Those can both be helpful outlets. And Liz, yes, this is primarily for state appropriations process, but we can definitely tie this into how it will be affected by federal funding and the FASD Respect Act in the coming months. So just like having contacts in the executive branch is important, having contact with specific agencies is also important. Contacting them, bringing them into different meetings, making sure that they are aware of FASD, the programs that are already available in the state, and how funding could affect them. As I mentioned, the bulk of the advocacy work can come when the budget bill itself is sent to the legislator. That's when many legislators will hold public hearings, which I know some people here have definitely been a part of. Again, that's not something that everyone is able to do, can do, has time to do. That's totally understandable. But that's why just trying to expand the table and making sure that FASD is being talked about at as many places as possible can set us up and can set you up in your state for bringing this funding in. And again, this is really just a very cursory overview, just starting the process of looking at what state appropriations looks like. And next month, we will plan on talking more about building a coalition, partnering with other groups, and how to best leverage the power that we already have in order to make more FASD informed agencies, but also branches of government. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now so I can see the entire group. And I know we have a lot of people on this call who have done this work already in their states. Carl, I'm looking at you, but if there's anyone else who has any information that they want to share, what has worked, what hasn't worked, what they want to know more about for the next months to come, would love just to hear from anyone right now.
All I can say is any legislative work is a process. Sometimes a lengthy and unproductive process, but it's still a process. Any communication with the legislator, either state or federal, is a positive thing. So even if you don't, if you get bills introduced in your state and they don't pass, it's not necessarily negative because you had that open communication with the legislative teams and we're able to get the information out. So there's a chance in the future that something better can happen, but it is definitely a process.
Yeah, Carl, absolutely. And I really do want to reiterate that it's an ongoing process, especially when it comes to the appropriations. It will be something that we'll have to go back to each year, but that's something that with relationships building, it just becomes easier and easier. There would be less fighting if you're able to foster those relationships.
And at the state level, the more personal stories you can bring from people you work with in your family catalog, the better, because the legislators at the state level, more so than the federal level, love those personal stories.
And doing the legwork of finding who you're supposed to contact, whether they're legislators or they're within agencies, can be difficult. That is something I'd be more than happy to help with. So if you're not sure where to start, please reach out and we'll get that started.
I'd be happy to be a part of that conversation too, Chris. And realizing that every state is different, all we can do is give the general direction. And in some cases, we can really delve into what your state process is and point you in the right direction. But some state websites are very convoluted and difficult to use.
That's very true. And I'm starting to think that it's done on purpose.
It's a conspiracy.
Yeah. And one thing Carl mentioned was, whether or not you've introduced legislation or anything like that, whether or not it's passed, we now will have a resource thanks to our great intern, Liv, who has looked at state legislation, and a lot of state legislation, gone through anything that is mentioned, FASD, and is cataloging it. We're trying to make that shareable. We're trying to do some other projects on that. So we will have an update on that, hopefully in the next month or two. And hopefully if she's able, we can get her on to talk about it, because she's been putting in a lot of work looking at different pieces of legislation mentioning FASD that I think people would find helpful when either crafting their own or just speaking with different agencies in general.
I would be interested in getting help here in Ohio on how to do whatever I can do.
Excellent. Okay. And can you remind me, we did speak at the conference, correct?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I'm very glad you were able to join. Yeah, we can
Okay.
definitely chat.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, great.
Is there anyone else from Ohio on the call? I'm not seeing any other Ohioans. Going back to early in today's presentation, I want to throw a poll in the chat just to try to garner interest in this year's Impact Week. So I am just launching that now. Feel free to throw a response in. Nothing is binding here, but it will help us plan Hill Day, plan the different workshops and everything like that. Kristen, what's up?
Well, I was gonna just share a little bit more after Carl about some of the things. Doing a proclamation for FASD was so easy, and it kind of scared me how easy it was, because it's just a matter of knowing when to do it and requesting it. And then I got back a message just saying, oh, how do you want it worded? And they said, sure, okay. And I just thought it was going to be a lot more, work for us to do. And so we've done that for 2 years. And then as far as reaching out to the senators and all that, I think that I have been a pain in the neck, just like Jen said, but kindly. And, we got, I don't know now, I guess Ruben says, I think we have 4. I thought we only had 3 representatives that signed on, but 1 signed on without ever meeting with us at all. 1 signed on after we met with her 3 years in a row and bugged her to continue to meet with us. And then she just said, I don't want to meet again. And then she just signed on. So that squeaky wheel does work, even if you feel like it doesn't.
Yeah, Kristen, it's been great being on the meetings with them, as with you and Ruben and the families and caregivers you bring in. Those meetings run very smoothly. So I'm not surprised that the 4 of them have signed on.
Chris, can you just clarify? It is 4, right? I'm not because I'm doubting myself a little bit, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 4 as well.
I think somehow I've missed that Seth Moulton was signed on. That's the one
Yes.
I'm not aware of.
Yes.
And if he definitely is, then that's 4. Awesome. Okay.
And Rachel, just responding to the message in the chat, we'll absolutely make all the slides available after. The slides specifically on the state appropriations will be more fleshed out. I'll include all the notes and everything like that. It'll be much more detailed. Moving forward with the short segment on state advocacy and state appropriations, is there anything that you would find helpful, that you'd like some clarification on? As I said, next month planning on talking more about coalition building, so being part of other conversations and bringing others into our conversations, but we're really open to crafting this around what is needed. And in the meantime, Patrice, I'll just respond to that. Emma, correct me if I'm wrong. It is the Hyatt West End Georgetown, Hyatt Place West End Georgetown, I believe.
Yes, it is. And Patrice, I can send you more information on that week, just the venue details and things like that, so you can have a better idea and have it kind of in a researchable spot. And we should be publishing more or posting more about that in the next week or so.
Oh, all right, thank you. I haven't been able to find anything, so thank you.
Yeah, I think what was said here is like a sneak peek, hasn't been released to the public yet. So you're not behind at all.
And if you're not familiar with the city, it's a great spot. It's centrally located. It's really right between Georgetown and the mall. So it's pretty easy to get everywhere. Yeah, it's just a great spot. Well, we mentioned it might be a bit of an abbreviated meeting. I don't want to end it early if anyone has unless anyone has any questions or any of their own input. Yeah, Sid. Oh, I think you're muted there, Sid.
Yep. There we go. I put a note in the chat that the Federal Interagency Committee on FASD is meeting May 9th, and I wondered if we were going to be able to monitor that. One of the things at the state level that's very helpful to know about is incoming federal grants. SAMHSA just put out, for example, 4 state grants for pregnant and parenting women without any explicit reference to FASD issues, as tends to be the case with the focus on opioids. So monitoring what the Interagency Committee is doing and what they might be doing can give us some sense of what's happening that may affect the state agencies that we're in touch with. And I hope we can monitor that, given that it takes place in Washington and it's online.
Yeah, thank you, Sid. Tom, do you have any info on that?
Yeah, thank you, Sid. Yeah, yes, and the meeting is webcast live, so you can watch that as it occurs. And I know in the roundup and through social media, we will be sending those links and that information out. As Sid said, May 9th is the meeting. I believe that our colleague at FASD United, Kathy Mitchell, is going to be on the agenda. I've not seen the full agenda and it has not been posted yet, so I can't say, but we know that the core presentations are from the federal agency members. So each of the agencies within the Department of Health and Human Services has a representative, even those agencies that don't have specific FASD dollars, which is most of them. And then there is to be a representative from the Departments of Education and Departments of Justice and some others. Those I've noticed, those positions are not always filled. So that's something to look for. And keep in mind that as you watch this, you feel free to reach out and contact these folks, ask them if their short presentations prompt any questions in your mind about what the agency is doing, or what the agencies might do. And as Sid mentioned, I think it's very important that just because they have funding opportunities, they don't specifically mention FASD, there are funding RFAs, RFPs, requests for proposals, and applications that are that hit the street. That it's more than appropriate to propose a project focused on FASD. And the more we can talk about with these agency representatives and with the agencies and encourage them or insist that they talk to the agencies where they work about FASD and how their community, how significant it is, how the community has grown, particularly in the case of SAMHSA, that for 15 years had FASD funding and no longer does. All of that is very important. And in anticipation of the passage of the RESPECT Act and federal appropriation, that much more important to be to sort of forge relationships with people at the agencies most likely to have dollars. That is, of course, CDC, expect to have more money there. HRSA, which has the very small $1 million, which, by the way, there is a offering to renew that program that is out right now and is due, applications are due June 21st. So yes, please check in, watch that meeting, and if you want to be assertive, follow up with what you hear and those who are featured.
Yeah, I wonder whether it would be possible in time for FASD United to develop an agenda aiming at not just the FASD designated funding streams, but the much larger amounts of money designated for programs for children and families. Federal government spends $500 billion a year intended to help children. Medicaid, IDEA funding, home visiting, a host of others, child welfare, with disproportionate caseloads of FASD kids. And I don't know what effort we have made or could make, but developing an agenda where we ask for regular reports on how those programs with much larger dollars than we're talking about that are FASD designated could be affecting the FASD agenda. The federal executive order on diversity and inclusion mentions disabilities. That has the degree to which developmental disabilities have been focused on that has been pretty small. And that's an opportunity to pick up the banner of diversity and inclusion and talk about the ways in which these kids and adults are often invisible in federal caseloads that are supposed to be helping children and families.
Actually, yeah, Sid, I think that's a great point and something that that definitely deserves some more attention. Just going back to what you said about the webcast and Tom, we'll make sure that link is included in the blog post recap of this when we get everything posted on Friday. So if people do want to watch along on May 9th, that'll be there. And then we'll be watching along, and we'll make sure that for those who can't, we'll get a recap of that posted as well. Just going through the chat real quickly. Michelle, I noticed you said that in Illinois, you need a nonprofit to submit with you. And I know Illinois, I think, requires somebody from Illinois to submit. But there might be a chance that a national nonprofit can partner with you. And of course, we'd be happy to be on that as well. Right after this, I can look at the process and requirements and get back to you, but we'd be happy to help there, of course. Debbie, we'd love to have you at Impact Week. And if you could bring Wyatt as well, that'd be great. It was really nice being able to meet Wyatt at the conference. He had people smiling all over the place. He was very nice. Marilyn, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was raising my hand. I told you and a few other people that in Colorado, a bill has been introduced in the state legislature and the Senate It's to establish a Colorado alcohol impact and recovery enterprise. And FASD will be eligible for some of the funding by grants. And I have, some of us wrote emails to committee members of the finance committee. It's made it out of the finance committee. It's now waiting to go before the appropriations committee in the Senate. And so some of us have testified, some of us have written letters, and we're waiting to hear what's next, but that's a potentially really good news. And FASD was mentioned in the newspaper in the article about this bill. So I always encourage people to let people know in your state legislatures what you're doing. You're an advocate, that you're an FASD advocate, and get the word out. You never know where it'll go. And we don't know how this will go, but we're just hopeful. So it's going to collect money. It's basically setting up a fee to fund addiction treatment and recovery programs, having the alcohol, I believe distributors, sellers, help pay for all the costs in the state that result from alcohol. And they are including FASD in there.
Excellent. Yeah, Debbie, do you want to go ahead and before respond to Marilyn?
Sure. I didn't get to meet you in Seattle, Chris, but I know Wyatt did, and I'm sorry you were always busy when I was walking through. But I just wanted to say really quickly, you never know when you talk to somebody what a ripple effect it might have in awareness of FASD and our work for policy change. How I got our mayor to write a proclamation, and I've done this and spoken to the city council for 7 years now, was just, so I'm in a Starbucks one day and said, hey, do you know what FASD, that's what Wyatt's disability is, and had a conversation. And then from there, he said, call Rachel, his city clerk. And, and then it's brought other connections and speaking to Rotary and, had a ripple effect in our community. So, don't be afraid, just have those conversations, everybody.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And as somebody who, again, I'm relatively new to the FASD space, and I'm not a family member or caregiver or anything like that, I've still found to have the conversations can have that effect. And you really do, you find out that the community is much larger. There are more people who are FASD informed. I think that's a great point. And Marilyn, just going back to what you had said, it was great. I think you may have been the first person and the last person I spoke to at the conference, and just hearing about the work being done in Colorado, it was a great kickoff. And I have the two fact sheets, the one fact sheet that you shared with me. And if you're okay with me distributing that, just let me know if anyone is interested in seeing the information that the Colorado group has put together regarding the Alcohol Use Impact and Recovery Fee Act. We can get that out to people.
And I'll just add that one reason that it's possible they knew about the FASD writing the bill is that I knew that my state representative was big on mental health. So I just introduced myself to her on a Zoom call once. I still remember that at the end she said, "What's your ask?" And I wasn't prepared to say anything, to give an ask. I remember I've learned a little bit since then, but just establishing those connections, going to some of the town halls in your own town, getting to know those people, you just never know. And always making sure that they know about FASD, send them information. You just never know where it'll go. So, and thanks, Chris, for all that you do.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, in that same vein, at the end of the 117th Congress, I was able to send an email to then Congressman John Katko urging his support for the FASD Respect Act, just because I had coached both of his sons in soccer. And we didn't even have to have a meeting. He sent a quick email back saying, "Great to hear from you, Chris. Signing on." 2 days later. Now obviously not everyone here is a soccer coach and able to have those connections, but I think what Marilyn, just showed that reaching out, doing that will, can really pay dividends. But if any of you know any Congress people with kids who need soccer coaches, send them my way. Hopefully that will work. And again, I know I said that we were going to have a bit of an abbreviated meeting, but we are coming up to the 3 p.m. spot here. If give anyone a last opportunity for any closing remarks or any questions. Excellent. Well, if not, we really look forward to seeing everyone next month. I hope you all know that you're free to stop by our policy drop-ins every Wednesday. If you need any more information on that, feel free to reach out. We have a few regular attendees on here. But again, yeah, if not, we'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, everyone.